We have all heard the phrase, you have to list to last. Well, on today's live stream, I have a special guest. He is someone that you guys have already seen many, many times here on my YouTube channel. And he's going to be sharing exactly what it takes for you to be getting a listing a day. Now, perhaps some of you are watching this and you're like, you know what, Loida, I just want to get a listing, period. So make sure that you have a pen and paper ready because he's going to be dropping a lot of great gems. So you're going to definitely want to take some notes. So one of the awesome things, about the brokerage that I'm a part of, a Real Broker, is that it has allowed me to be able to meet other agents and collaborate with them. So that's exactly how I met this person that is going to come up. So without any more delays, I'm going to go ahead and bring on Robert Villanueva. Welcome, Robert.
Hello, hello.
So as you guys can see, Robert's always ready with the headset. He was probably cranking out some calls, setting some appointments. But Robert, for everyone that's watching that maybe is not familiar with you, just go ahead and give us a little bit about your background.
Sure, always. This is always the funnest question. So let me give you the quick cliff notes a little bit about myself. I've been in the business for 25 years. Very first year I did 42. Second year I did 86 deals. Third year I did 101. Best year ever was 154 deals and 156 deals, 1.4 million in commissions. I've been a broker for 20 years, and I've been a coach now for the last 11 years. And when people ask me what do I do for a living, I always tell them I get to make millionaires, and I love making millionaires.
That's awesome. And you have so much experience. And for those of you that are watching, some of you have been able to participate in some of the role plays that Robert and I do every single week. Robert has a group, Top Realtor Training, that I definitely invite all of you guys to be a part of and join, where he does additional trainings. But today specifically, I want to talk about listings, and more specifically, I want to know more about Robert's story. Because if you heard, he has done a lot of deals and every year just gotten better, and now he's obviously coaching agents. So Robert, tell us, how you started, because I'm pretty sure there's probably some newer agents that are watching this and they're like, how do I even get to the point where I'm selling over 100 homes a year? So how was the beginning for you?
Yeah, the beginning was struggling. It was frustrating, just like everybody else. Went into a brokerage, was confused, didn't know what to do. Now, mind you, this is back in 1999. And what was very common for realtors back in the days was to put an ad in the paper, wait for the phone to ring, and take care of some of those calls. Well, when you're not making any money, you can't promote yourself, you can't put ads in the paper, you can't get calls. So I sat there, and again, I'm 22, 23 years of age, formerly a not so good kid as a teenager, and I didn't know how to generate business. And I asked my broker, what do I need to do? And he had me get some flyers. I went out the very first day to go knock on some doors. I knocked on 50 doors. I got a buyer. And, not the smartest of the bunch, but I figured 50 doors got me a buyer. What does that look like at 100 doors? And didn't look back for 8 months. And in those 8 months, I was able to do, 42 deals, which was, which put me like almost at the number one spot already in the company as a rookie. And what made me special was nothing more than my work ethic. I was not like uberly skilled. I just worked 10, 12-hour days, 7 days a week. And I didn't take a day off for the first 8 months.
Wow.
Yeah,
So I know that you mentioned door knocking. Is that all you did in the beginning, or what did your prospecting look like?
that was it. I mean, really, at the beginning, I had no skill. I didn't even know what to do, who to go after. I didn't even know of expires or what a FISBO was. And I just saw FISBOs as my competition. I didn't know any better. So for me, my script at the time is I'd knock on the door and I'd just go, hi, my name is Robert. I'm a local realtor. My office is just right down the street. Are you thinking about buying? Are you thinking about selling? And every once in a while, I'd get somebody to sit there and say, yeah, we are. We're thinking about doing the following. And I'd just stumble across these people.
That's awesome. That you were able to do that and get results. And you mentioned you were able to get around 40 deals just doing that without any skills, really?
Yeah, it was all effort. I mean, every single day, I would knock on 100 doors. That would get me 40 to 50 conversations or contacts. And yeah, you do that 8 months in a row, you're going to get some results.
That's awesome. I assume that at this point you were also probably building some type of database or getting people's
Mhm.
information, or what did that look like?
A little bit. I'll give a little further backstory. As a teenager, I was not really a good kid. I used to do some bad things. I became a dad at the age of 15. Just to kind of share with you a little bit of what my background consisted of. I buried a lot of my closest friends, buried as in they died because of some stupid things, gang banging, as a teenager. So a lot of my friends, family, they didn't trust, this person. So I had to build my business as cold as it came, and little by little, as I started to become a professional, I started to build that database of past clients. Little by little, my friends started to put themselves in a position of becoming, buyers. And then now, okay, now my family's looking at me and like, okay, this guy's not doing some stupid things like he used to, and I started to get some family business as well.
Okay, no, that's
Mm,
awesome. And thank you for sharing a little bit about your
mm,
upbringing and
yeah.
everything that you've gone through. So obviously that was your first year. You have continued to get better. At what point did you start to incorporate maybe coaching or even like for sale by owners or expireds or even other type of lead sources?
Yeah, I was actually introduced by my broker to Mike Ferry. And early on, I think it was probably about 4 or 5 months into the business, I went to an event. And at the event, Mike was interviewing all of these millionaire agents. And there was this one guy that had this like watch that was like blingy, like there was no tomorrow. And I said, I want that. Signed up for coaching, and I've been in coaching as a coaching client for over 25 years, and I just kept working on my skills. And it's probably a good 10 or 12 years where I would have two and even three coaches helping me at the exact same time.
That's awesome. And
Mhm.
for someone that's watching this that maybe knows that they should get coaching and
Mhm.
hire a coach to, make things go faster in the learning curve, what would you recommend for them if they might be on the fence or they might say, well, I'm on a budget, I can't afford it
Mhm.
right now. What would you say?
Well, here's the thing: is that we also have to look at it in regards to the most professional of professionals, whether that be an athlete, whether that be a celebrity movie star, or somebody who's in a professional business environment. They all have mentors or they have coaches. Think of the best athletes. Michael Jordan, in most cases, had 3 to 5 coaches at any given moment. Okay. Sure, you could do it on your own. Sure, you can grow and become a better version of yourself. But it's always better when you actually have somebody who's been there, who's done that, and knows how to maneuver through the things and the challenges that you're having. So, my encouragement, because unfortunately, people see sometimes coaching as an expense. It's not an expense, it's an investment. It's kind of no different than going out and, going to the grocery stores and buying everything out of the frozen food section, or you can actually go into the greens area and get the right stuff that you're supposed to. So, and, when it comes time to coaching, you have to be able to invest in yourself, and put yourself in a position where ideally you have a mentor or somebody who's guiding you in the process.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm glad that you
Mhm.
said that. So now I want to fast forward, to those
Mhm.
years that you're doing over 100 deals.
Mhm.
What did the prospecting look like? I mean, how many hours were you maybe on the phones, at the doors? Did you have a
Mhm.
life?
No, I'm gonna sit here. I'm not gonna like try to pretend like as if everything was peachy. Building over 100 deals in 3 years. That third year, I was working about 80 hours a week. I mean, I was grinding. I was working my butt off. I was working 6.5 hour days. And I knew that there was something wrong with that picture because yes, I was making substantial money. I was doing a lot of business, but it was coming at the expense of no longer being invited to the parties, no longer hanging out with the people that I'm supposed to be hanging out with. So I started looking at no longer being just effective. I started learning how to become efficient. And eventually, the cool thing about it is my most successful production year, 154 deals, I actually did that in a 35-hour work week. I would take every Friday off at noon. I would not work a Saturday. I would not work a Sunday. And I'm proud to say for 2 years, 2 years, I made 100 contacts every single day. You know, um, when there's other people out there that are making a contact to 5 or 10, and then they're wondering why their business isn't where it's supposed to be. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're bringing up the contacts because I
Mhm.
think that that is something extremely important, especially for agents that want to hit certain numbers. And anytime that I have joined the trainings that you host during the week,
Mhm.
one thing that you always mention is tracking your numbers. So,
Yeah.
can you kind of break down how agents should be tracking their numbers so that they can hit some goals?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I have my coaching clients do is that I have them go through every single last day, identify how many conversations they've had over the course of 90 days, which is pretty much about 60 business days. We can get a pretty decent picture. Now you go through, let's just use an example. You make 1,000 contacts in that window. And out of that 1,000 contacts, you were able to set, I don't know, let's just say 5 appointments. And of the 5 appointments, you ended up getting one contract signed and you ended up selling it. So basically, your ratio ends up being 1,000 for every one paycheck. So now we work on how do we go from 1,000 contacts to a paycheck down to 500, down to 400, down to 300, and eventually get into the point where you can do it in 100 contacts or less. And there's a lot of things that we can work on. What are some things we can work on? Number one, language of sales. That's the most important thing. Can you maneuver through a conversation? Because the language of sales is probably the most important thing we can work on. Number two is that of following a very precise and specific schedule that not only are you going to be productive, effective, but doing it efficiently. That's the most important thing. And having, the schedule that's actually allowing you to be able to income generate versus just kind of sitting there and trying to figure out what your day's going to consist of.
Yeah, I think that's something that maybe a lot of agents struggle with. You think you're working, but you're not really working. You're scrolling
Mm,
social media or you get distracted.
mm,
So for anyone that's like, you know what, Robert, Loida, I have been working mostly with buyers, but because of everything that has recently happened with the changes, I want to focus on listings. So how
mm.
can I transition from mostly working buyers to now listings?
So the first thing I want to do is make sure that obviously with everything that's taking place with the buyers, last thing I want to do is discourage people to work with buyers. I want you to continue generating business the way that you have, but I want you to start to incorporate, tweak, alter some things. Number one is looking at your day. What does your day consist of? And if for those of you that have followed me in the past, you guys already know the 5 things. And the 5 things is number one, you got to work on your skills. You got to work on your skills every single day. Number two is the amount of contacts you're having. How many conversations are you having? The most productive agents are having between 30 to 50 contacts a day. 30 to 50 contacts a day is the ones that are actually getting the most success. Number three is your lead follow up. 80 to 90% of your business is going to come in your lead follow up. You have to follow up with them when you tell them you're going to follow up with them. Number four, you got to negotiate contracts. That's our job. That's what we get paid to do. And number five is going on appointments. When you do all 5 of those things every single day, naturally, you're going to start to generate more and more and more and more business, which is going to now put you in a position of working on number 6, 7, and 8. But 6, 7, and 8, hiring an assistant administration, maybe doing some social media, maybe focusing on other sources of business, all of these other things that become part of our day. But those 5 things is what you really have to pay close attention to, because if you're not doing those 5 things, what are you doing?
Perfecting their flyer.
Perfecting their flyer.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, when I started, I remember, I was doing exactly what you just mentioned. I
Mhm,
was on the phones all day
mhm,
until I got a lead or set an appointment. And I remember being 3, 4, 4:30 in the afternoon. And I'm
mhm,
like, man, everyone that I've been talking to was like pissed off. They're going off on me. But to me, it got to the point that I was excited when I was getting that because I was
mhm.
like, something good is gonna come soon. I can feel it. And one of the
Yeah.
first listing appointments that I said when it expired was with someone that I was not going to make that call. 3 people before that were just like rude, and I'm like, man, I'm ready to just like call it a day. But I
Yeah.
had told myself I need to have 30 conversations today, and I haven't hit my numbers. So I had that phone call conversation, and
Mhm,
the gentleman, he was upset. He was like, "Oh, you realtors are the same." But it
Yeah.
gets to the point that when you work on your skills, you can tell when someone is so frustrated because they needed to sell versus someone that you're like, okay, this person, I don't want to talk to them right now. And
Yeah.
in my case, I could tell that this gentleman needed to sell because
Mhm.
of his living situation, set an appointment. That was a listing right under 1 million. Ended up also finding the buyer for it. And
Yeah.
that kind of like lit a fire under me that I'm like, man, I need to keep going because so many
Mhm.
agents probably would have given up the same way that I wanted to, but it was that like little I like to hold myself at a high standard and do what I say I'm going to do, and that's how I was able to accomplish that. So,
Yeah, that's what it takes. I mean, that's what it takes, Lloyd. I mean, I appreciate everything that you're saying because I think what I want the audience to take away from with what Loida is talking about is just being in a position where you have that integrity. And agents unfortunately do not have that integrity with themselves. So I kudos to you. I applaud you. That's why I look up to you from so many different aspects, and that's why we work so well in this environment because we have the same level of integrity and desire to become successful. My question to the audience is, do you? Hmm. Yeah.
yep.
Hmm.
I would love to know what they do because usually what happens is that agents, if no one's holding them accountable, I've seen it where it's like, you know what, I'll just get started tomorrow. Or, oh, that person just yelled at me on the phone, like this doesn't work, cold calling doesn't work, expires for sale by owners. And
Yeah.
again, for me, I felt like I couldn't live with myself if I gave up before completing what I said I was gonna do.
Hmm.
It got to the point that, you know, when I was newer, I'm like, I can't go on vacation. I can't take time off. Time off. Why? Because I don't deserve it. If I have
Right.
not set appointments or gotten listings, like, do I really deserve going and taking time?
Mm.
No. And that's how I was trained, and that's how I was taught and how I learned. And I
Yeah.
think it goes back to like standards and how you see yourself and the people that you should surround yourself with. That's why it goes back kind of to like you and I are very similar with how we
Uh,
are, which I think is great. And hopefully the audience that is watching here gets motivated and inspired to be like, you know what, maybe I need to review my schedule and what I do and when I do it. And maybe somebody does have to hold me accountable.
yeah. 100%. Hmm.
Yeah. So let's say someone is like, well, Robert, I want to focus on listings. What lead sources do I need to go after?
Well, I think at the beginning, for every single one of you, when you're looking at what source you want to go after, you have to identify number one is if you actually are going to pay for your business, or number two, you're actually going to go out and find the business. And it's a very clear line. I was going to say fine line. It's a very clear line in regards to the two. What's the difference? Well, going out there knocking on doors, that's going and finding the business. You're not waiting for it. Picking up the phone and calling people is another way of finding the business. Or you can go in the other direction, which is waiting for the business to come to you. Problem is in our industry, waiting for the business, you could keep waiting. So in the meantime, you have to start looking at what sources you can actually go and generate business from initially. The most successful agents will go after for sale by owners. Why? Because 100% of the for sale by owners have raised their hand and said that they want to sell. Okay. Um, I'm not saying in order for you to be successful, you have to go after for sale by owners. I'm just saying that that's what most of the agents that list high levels of property is going to be going after for sale by owners. Number two, is expireds. Expireds is another source that a lot of stronger agents go after. Number three is knocking on doors or calling just listed, just sold. And number four, of course, is your personal database, continuing to work on your friends, your family, your past clients. And I'm not talking about begging for business, because I know I get this from time to time. Our job is to provide value to our friends, family, past clients, and people that we work with, and letting them know, hey, this is what's going on in the market. Loida, who do you know that needs to know this information that I need to be reaching out to that's considering and buying, selling, or even investing? So those are probably the sources that are the most lucrative that will allow you the opportunity to be able to generate more listings.
Mhm. And I think also to add on to that, in
Mhm.
order for you to have success going after these, especially the for sale by owners and the expireds, your skills have to be on point with your communication
100%.
and your tonality. Because if you are not, these people can tell right as soon as you say hello and they're going to hang up. And
all day.
when I got into real estate, I knew that these were going to be tough. And for me, I was like, okay, so agents are scared of calling this. You know what? I'm going to get so good that they're going to be like, how is Loida doing this? And
Yeah.
I never in a million years thought that I was going to be making phone calls and knocking on doors. And
Hmm.
I took it as a challenge, and that's what I became very good at. But I was, going back to skills, working on my skills, role playing 2 hours every single day, role playing before I started my calls. At 8 o'clock, the phone's already in my hand. I'm not getting into the office. I'm already sitting with my pre-call
Yeah.
sheet ready to
Mm.
press start. So it's exciting when you work on your skills because now making that phone call, you want to get tested with
Yeah.
objections to see, okay, can I handle this?
Yeah.
So now, even when I'm driving on the street, if I see a for sale by owner sign, I get excited. I'm like, man, I want to call this FISBO. Maybe I'll set an appointment with them and just see what they throw to me because
uh,
that's going to get a good over time.
yeah, yeah, for sure, absolutely. When you have the skills that you're like, yeah, let's bring it on. I mean, I deal with the skill side of things every single day from a coach's perspective because I get asked all the time, and I have to be prepared. My coaching clients will say, "Hey, Robert, how do you handle this? Hey, coach, how do you handle that?" You got to be able to be skilled to do this. And I'm glad you said you worked on your skills 2 hours a day because a lot of times, unfortunately, what do realtors not do? Work on their skills, or they do it that one time, that other day, last Thursday, one role play, and they think that they're working on their skills. That's equivalent to me having a salad last Thursday, jumping on a scale and thinking that it's actually going to move. So
Yeah. And I
yeah.
had different role play partners as well. So
Mhm.
I wasn't role playing with myself because I hear that all the time too. Yeah, like I was
Mm.
practicing in front of the mirror. But no, you
Yeah.
got to role play with other people because you don't know, how they're going to speak, how they're going to react. And
Yeah.
I feel in a way that's what allowed me to get better because
Mhm.
I was role playing with people on the East Coast. If you talk to someone from New York or Boston, it's completely different from, someone in the
Yeah.
West Coast. So
Right.
it allowed me to get better with the way that I communicate, especially with drivers that are like, get straight to the point. Like, what do you want? Yeah.
Mhm. Yep,
So,
exactly.
another thing that I want to ask you, let's say someone is like, you know what, Robert, I have consistent business, but my listings are sporadic. How can I get at least one listing a week?
So, literally just came off of a coaching session straight into here our live, and we broke down his business plan. And in the business plan, the very first thing we did is looked at how many deals this gentleman wants to do. He gave me a number. I said, okay, great. Of that number, which in this case was 30, what are the sources of business you're going to go after? He said, I want to go after this source, this source, this source, this source, and this source. Awesome. From this source, how many deals would you like to get? From this source, how many deals would you like to get? We went through all the different sources. As we went down and broke it down, we're now next session we're going to break them all down and put them into a schedule. Okay, after this source, how much time are you allocating, and how many contacts are you making to go after this source? Same thing for this one. Same thing for this one. Same thing for this one. So you have to identify what sources you're going to go after, create a plan of attack, stay consistent, remain patient because I know some of you'll go through and you'll try to do it for 3 months. That doesn't work for me. And then you move on and you do this carousel of sources. You can't do that. That's not how it works. You got to be patient, but you got to keep working at it. You have to be persistent, and eventually you're going to start to see the chips fall in place.
And I assume, in order to get a listing a day, it's the exact same formula, kind of reverse engineering and seeing what it takes to get there.
Yeah, exactly. I've had the good fortune again going back to people say, well, why do you call yourself a millionaire coach? What do you mean you make millionaires? I do. I get the good fortune of taking agents, and I always have to be careful with this because I know that the agents are the ones that do all the work. But an agent that'll make 100, 120, $150,000 a year, 5 years later they're making 1.2, 1.3, 1.5 million dollars. How do we do that? We basically look at all the different things that I just, in a sense, described and said, okay, last year, your database gave you 4 deals. How do we go from 4 to 12? Calling it for sale by owners, you got 2. How do we go from 2 to 8? Expired. Last year, you got 1. How do we go from 1 to 6? And we keep doing that. And then the next year, we do it again and again and again. And how do we actually do that versus just simply throwing it out there and saying it? Track numbers, I want to see what the skills are like. We role play. I get my coaching clients to actually record their calls. I break them down to the absolute minutia of just simply even how people say hello. If they say hello, you say hello. If they say howdy, you say howdy. I get down to the nitty gritty in regards to that with all of my coaching clients, and we continue to just chip away. 1% here, 1% there, 1% over there. And that's all we're doing is working and finessing to where eventually 2, 3, 5 years later, this person is now a completely different type of producer.
That's so awesome. If you
Mm,
guys that are watching this have been enjoying this live stream so far and you have found it valuable, go ahead and drop us a comment. Let us know because
mm.
Robert and I do have plans on doing more of these. So let us know what would you want for us to talk about. Also, before we wrap this up, go ahead and send us your questions. But before we get to that point, Robert, obviously, you have given so much great information. For someone that is already producing at a high level, that is maybe a solo agent, at what point should they consider, maybe building out a team or hiring an assistant, buyer's agent, or any recommendations on that you have?
Yeah, the team concept I'm not opposed to. You just have to be careful in regards to how you build this. I prefer you to build it out organically. What do I mean by that? Well, when an agent is building a team, I don't want you to be this agent that is collecting or hoarding licenses. And all of a sudden you have this team of 10, 12, 15 people that you're babysitting. It's not what I want you to do. I want you to build this thing organically. I have a coaching client right now where literally he has so many distractions because he has, I think now about a dozen people on his team. They're going to do very good production. They'll do about $3 million this year, but distraction after distraction after distraction. So instead of doing that, I'd rather you go the opposite direction and start to build it organically. When you're about 20, 25, maybe even 30 deals, you start to hire your first part-time assistant. When you're about 50 deals, you make that part-time assistant into a full-time assistant. When you're at 75 deals, I'm already at 75 deals. Some of you already have like 3 buyers agents and 2 assistants and so on and so forth. This is 1 assistant at 50 deals. At 75, you now bring on your first buyer's agent. Okay. You don't bring on a buyer's agent unless you can actually be able to provide them deals. If you can't give them a deal or two, there's no point of having them because they're going to be way more of a distraction than anything. And you get to 100 deals, you now have 1 full-time assistant and 1 full-time buyer's agent. And maybe you're now teetering with that second buyer's agent or assistant.
There you go. So some of
Yeah.
you might have to rewatch this part because Robert just broke that down. But I want to ask you, when you got to the level where you were doing hundreds of deals, were you just 100% focusing on listings? And even if you got a buyer that you're like, I could totally work this, would you hand it off?
I was a hoarder. I was a hoarder. I always went after listings as much as I possibly could, but there would be some high maintenance or some, lower price point buyers, and I would refer them out as much as I possibly could. But I would try to do as many deals as I potentially could. I was pretty close about an 80-20, 80% listings, 20% on the buy side. So I would, in most cases, be working with about 2, maybe 3 buyers at the absolute most. And then anything above that, I would just refer it out to someone else.
Okay. So if someone's watching this,
Mhm.
and they're getting consistent business, would you leave it up to them to decide if they do get buyers to either do it themselves or hand it off to a buyer's agent so that they strictly focus on listings?
Well, it depends on what level they're at. So if you're an agent that's doing, 10, 15 deals and, the majority of them are buyers, keep working them. There's no reason why you can't be able to manage 2, even 3 buyers a month and then start to build the listing side of things. But if you're an agent that's doing, 40, 50 buyers at this point in time, I'm like, goodness gracious, you got to get that under control, move it over to someone else because they end up in this like vicious cycle of I'm so busy that I can't even prospect. I'm so busy, I can't do anything else but go out and become this tour guide for homes. Right? So you become this overly worked, underpaid tour guide of homes. So you got to be able to be in a position where you have someone that can help you at that point. 2 to 3 buyers is right about that level where you can handle, regardless of how many listings you're doing. Anything above that, you got to be in a position where you refer it out.
Awesome. So as we wrap it up, what are three things that the audience that's watching and any agent has to be
Mhm.
doing right now?
You got to work on your skills, okay? Because the competition is getting more fierce. The laws that are changing are making it a little bit more challenging. There is a 20% and almost 30%. We don't know where the year is going to finish off yet in terms of production. So you have less fish in the sea. So you got to be in a position where you can be able to capture more with similar amount of competition. We don't have that much drop off yet on agents. We will, there will be, but you got to become very, very skilled. Number two is you got to look at your effectiveness and more importantly, your efficiency. So look at your skills, look at the schedule, look at how much of it you're doing, and then making sure you actually have a very solid lead follow-up system. Because unfortunately, a lot of agents they'll generate leads, but they don't follow up on them, and they end up shriveling up on the vine.
Awesome. And
Mm,
if you guys have been enjoying everything that Robert has been saying, definitely make sure to check out and subscribe to
mm.
his YouTube channel. The link is in the description box below. But yeah, I think we're ready to wrap this up. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. This is your last shot to ask any questions. But Robert, thank you so much once again for
Yeah.
everything that you mentioned. I think it's always awesome having you on here just
Mm.
because you have so much experience and you're still, I feel like we're the homies, but every once you're like, yeah, I'm selling millions of dollars of property.
Yeah, 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 exactly. So I love it.
Yes.
But yeah, let's go kick some butt.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you for watching, everyone. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.
All right, sounds good. Bye.